Councilmember Aguayo.
Here.
Councilmember Olmos.
Here.
Councilmember Quer Stallings. Vice Mayor Lemons.
Here.
Mayor Delgadillo.
Here, and I call for a motion to excuse Councilmember Perez Stallings due to a family emergency.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Public comments, Mr. Moreno, are there any public comments?
No public comment cards submitted, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir. We move on to the portion of the agenda. Mr. Moreno, do you have a report on the Clearwater Plan update?
Absolutely, Madam Mayor, we do. This is a discussion item as a follow-up to the joint Council Planning Commission meeting that was held last week, March 25th. If you recall, that was the meeting where the Planning Commission and the Council heard an update on the Clearwater specific plan. There was a lengthy discussion about the plan. I apologize for my absence as I was on vacation that week. However, there was a desire to continue the discussion amongst the council today. So that's why we are having this special meeting and to go over certain things, certain questions that the council members had and certain clarifications that need to be done that couldn't be done in the time allotted for that meeting. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our planning director, Mr. King, and he's going to start us off with the presentation. John?
Oh, I'm sorry. So I it sounds like at the mayor's wishes that the landowner's representative wants to speak to the record.
Fine with me, yes.
Thank you very much. First off, Vice Mayor Lemons, I'm sure you never thought you'd see me up here again. Me either, but here I am.
I like you better on that side.
Okay, me too. It's been a long time. But Bo is out of town on a long-planned family vacation with his family, so you get me. And again, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, Mr. City Manager, Mr. Planning Director, thank you very much. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Modern Development Company and the Bianchi family. We appreciate the dedication of the City Council and the staff, ensuring the interests of the city, modern development, and the public are accounted for in the final version of the Clearwater Specific Plan. Specific plans like this one are more commonly driven by the property owner approaching the city with the project to build. Here, the city has initiated the process, approaching the property owner and the public. Modern Development, as the primary property owner, is working collaboratively with the city for a plan that supports future development that comports with market demand. It is very, very common to have a back and forth dialogue that we've had for the past couple of weeks between a city and a property owner over specific plans, attempting to meet each other's needs. Following the workshop last week, staff responded and developed alternative options to address the concerns discussed by the City Council. Mr. King shared these options with Modern Development, and Modern Development is fully supportive of option A that you'll be seeing a little bit later. Modern Development finds this option best combines the city's desire for low massing from Paramount Boulevard. This provides full private and public space amenities with Modern Development's need for flexibility and potential to adapt to market demand and make any of the projects envisioned financially feasible and therefore buildable. As stated last week, Modern Development maintains a strong preference for including transfer of development rights, called TDR, in the plan. TDR will also serve as a function as a tool for the city in guiding growth and protecting low-density uses of land. TDR, if approved, will not increase the overall 2,000 dwelling unit count. It is vital that any development plan for this area allow for flexibility. This ensures the phased redevelopment will continue to meet the needs of the city, potential tenants, consumers, and Modern Development. Thank you very, very much for scheduling this second meeting. Appreciate you all very much.
Yeah.
We only had two.
This is the one in the packet that he sent.
Oh, I didn't see a packet. Okay. When did it come?
Friday.
Oh,
The Friday
that's
mail.
Probably because I was out of town Saturday and Sunday, so it's probably in that pile somewhere.
Would you like to see mine?
Actually, it's coming your way, Adam.
Those are the.
Yep.
Difference between what we saw.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, are you ready for the presentation?
Yes, I am.
All righty, Mr. King, take it away.
All right, the big show. Thank you. Appreciate bringing us back on such short notice. I know everyone's really busy with their afternoons, and it's just very telling of the council and the project, how important this is. So just a kind of review of what we'll be talking about, just get into a quick summary of our community outreach and engagement. I think it's important to know, what we brought out to the community and what they're saying. Then going over the existing plan area, the way it is now, and then the future options. So we started off what we're calling the administrative draft. So our initial thoughts that we put together following outreach with the community and the council and planning commission. And then the options that Mr. West mentioned, we did put together a few other options, A, B, and C. And as he mentioned, the modern development is in favor of A. Case studies, we presented a few photos last time showing a project in Bellflower and a couple others. We wanted to add, that's in here as well, but I added a couple more from Paramount so you could just get an idea of a real world idea of what density is, of a particular density, and then just timeline and next steps. We've had a contact with over 500 people, and that's growing. We're happy to say that this weekend on Saturday, there'll be a little booth at the Eco-Friendly Fair right outside the doors here. This might be the first time I'm sharing it with modern development folks, but I was going to send an email out about that today. So if you're interested in just joining, it's just we'll have boards showing some options for the community, and they'll be giving their input. So nothing different not too far different from what we've provided before. So meeting with the owners, we've had a number of sessions, and as you know, there's a photo with Musa. And the themes, there was a question I heard of what are they saying? What are the folks asking for, or what's their response to what we've been presenting? They see the need for more housing, with the critical need for affordable housing, and knowing that if you build homes, you increase the supply, it does make it better in the end. So they're generally okay with increased density overall. They want to keep the swap meet, possibly the drive-in, but more so the swap meet, and see them improved in some way, and keeping entertainment options, restaurant options was big. They want to have like a date night out, and making it more moving toward a walkable environment, like what we've been doing here with the downtown Paramount, north of Jackson, south of Alondra. They like the improvements there, and they like to see that continue with a walkable environment. We've mentioned that we're looking at an overall density of 30 homes per acre. That's what the state is requiring us to do, go from 22 to 30. 30 is the magic number. Since there's about 69 acres, that translates to 2,000 units if you calculate that through the whole project area. So the point of this plan is find the areas that make the most sense. With our outreach with the community, with our outreach with the council, we think we found the kind of sweet spot, and with opportunities for more office development. So to start, we did not have this last time, but this might be helpful. This map we could refer back and forth. You're welcome to stop me at any time and say, go, John, go backwards and forwards. This is how it is now. These are all the little areas. So you can see the left, it says mixed use center, and that's at the top right of the plan, the intersection of Rosecrans and Paramount. Just showing that Jack in the Box. That's, I'm looking at the photo. That's a different Jack in the Box in the photo. We're a little too, we know Paramount a little too well, but there's a Jack in the Box at that corner and some other retail. And then of course the Bianchi Theater, we like the colors that were changed a few years back. The swap meet and drive-in, it's the bigger area in the middle. It's quite central, and that's surrounded by parking. And of course, there's swap meet parking right off Somerset. That's especially on Tuesdays. Tuesdays, is the big day, and folks will park down there and walk into the little kiosks through the driveway. Our Lady of the Rosary Church is right out Paramount Boulevard. And then to the south of Somerset Business Park, and that's where the sheriff's station and some other industrial condos are located. We also labeled the residential streets, so you'll see 1st Street, 2nd Street, 3rd Street, Paramount Boulevard's on the right, Somerset on the bottom, running east and west. The rail corridor is along the west side, right down the middle of town, and at the top is Rosecrans Avenue. It's not there now, but the planned Southeast Gateway station is at the intersection of Paramount and Rosecrans. So just to orient you, we could always go back to this because this shows the aerial photo of what things look like now. Oh, I forgot. Mr. Meladeo, who was here at the last meeting, he's the property owner of the, some refer to as the Brown Yard building because it had big letters that said Brown Yard on it. And it was brown. The next slide is the what we put together, what we're calling the admin draft. And this is what is our starting point. And this this aligns with our discussions with the city council. And we had mentioned in the fall that there was a slight uptick to density on the very north. And that's just mathematics, just the way it kind of mathed out. Because at the very south, we're not allowing any housing. No housing would be allowed. It's what's called neo-industrial. Got a little definition here: non-industrial, non-residential area that promotes a diverse mix of artisanal manufacturing, breweries, emerging technology jobs, and locally serving businesses. Probably wouldn't see much change with the sheriff's station and those other buildings, but there is quite an opportunity at the vacant parking lot off Somerset and the Brown Yard property, the Meladeo property to the north of that. And then we mentioned, kind of going backwards, the quasi-public areas. So where I have the mouse showing now, that is the church, Our Lady of the Rosary. And the other quasi-public area is the Paramount adult school. Adult school, yeah. To the south of that, in between the two quasi-public areas, is a residential area. And this is 65, this would allow, by the way this is developed now, town residential, 65 homes per acre. And I'll get to those examples a little later. And you'll see on the left it says medium scale residential focus area that provides a transition between existing areas and the new town center and flex district. And then that vacant lot, which has had a number of carnivals and other events, that is the up to 40 homes per acre, town residential 40. And on the bottom left, it says similar to the MU2 zone of a plan that you approved north of Rosecrans. It's intended to activate Paramount Boulevard to support commercial and residential uses. To the very north would be the densest area, which includes the shopping center with the Jack in the Box, the Union Hall that's mostly vacant. They have meetings on occasion, and a fake plastic tree in the back for the cell phone service, and then the movie theater, of course. That's the mixed-use town center zone. You'll see it says 6 stories possible, and it's on the top left here: medium-scale mixed-use buildings, local shopping, small streets, and urban plazas for a vibrant new neighborhood center. That leaves the flex district. So that's, just as it sounds, flexible. That could be either housing at 40 homes per acre or very light manufacturing. And that's what it says here: diverse mix of missing middle residential typologies. Remember that term, missing middle, workforce housing. That's like the enclave, and you approved a change to the enclave homes. It also includes live-work townhomes. So just like it sounds, you live upstairs, you work downstairs. So that might support some more artistic folks, artisanal manufacturing, and some entertainment uses. So that's the plan in a nutshell, and some green space along the rail corridor. This is how things look now. So we labeled, did a better job at labeling the adult school, the streets: Rosecrans Avenue, Paramount Boulevard, running north and south. The line, the future southeast gateway line. This here says rail corridor, the rail corridor running north and south. and then Our Lady of the Rosary, and of course the concession stand and the where you used to project, where you would project to the drive-in screens. So that's existing. And here's a view that we shared, but this has more labels to help us orient ourselves. Should say All America City Way, Bianchi Way. So you could see with it developed up, the yellow is housing. So that could be housing in the future. And I say could because, for example, where I have the mouse at Rosecrans and Paramount, that's where Jack in the Box is. That's where multiple retail. It's a multi-tenant commercial building. It's leased up, so we don't foresee the owner making any drastic changes for some time. That's this area here. So I'll just kind of leave this for a moment. And
On our
yeah,
packet, yours says admin draft. Which one correlates with ours? Is it called current plan?
current plan, yes.
This is admin draft.
Admin draft. And then I'll get into the options, beginning with option A. Option A is the plan that modern development prefers. So it has the most changes. So it's a request for more density.
Hey, John, can I
Higher
pause here
buildings.
for a moment?
I can.
So
The one that says requested updates is the
Maybe
one.
that's option A.
That's option A is requested updates. Yeah, that's the main gist.
requested updates.
So we sent that out on Friday, right? On Friday, and later in that same day, the modern development team and our consultant team, they met, and the one change is that modern development is offering there's what's called a height restriction area. So along Paramount Boulevard, they would keep a maximum height of 35 feet, only a 3-store building on the front portion, the front first 40 feet. So that's the change. There's one change from there.
3 stories here and then bigger.
Madam Mayor, if I could request a pause. What I'd like to do is, I would like for these to be printed out and given to the council, so you can see them at your dais, because it doesn't seem like what is, showing on screen is actually matching here. Ivan, can you do me a favor? Can you have staff print out what is being presented right now? Do you have copies of the slides, either you or Sol? Okay, great. Yeah, because what you gave us was copies of what was in the agenda packet, but not what John's presenting right now. Yeah, Sol probably had, or, yeah.
Can we ask you a question, John, really quick?
Yes.
So the Jack in the Box area, right, that's on the corner of Rosecrans and Paramount, there's housing units there, but you guys don't own that, right?
No.
Okay, so that's just a plan for whoever the owners are.
This plan includes that entire, called a super block. So there are multiple owners.
So why would we include that in, I'm just curious, like, why would we be part of this plan if we're only looking to see what they're doing?
Actually, we're showing not just what they're intending to do.
Okay.
This plan would affect the other property owners. We thought it was important to include what's possible.
So meaning, so if they want to come back to the city, we already have something in play of what
Yeah.
we're looking for to do.
We wanted to show you build out.
Got it,
So
Yeah.
got it, okay.
prob-
Yeah, that's no problem. Okay, so that green spot, they're saying would be 80 units per acre, okay? So both of those? Okay, so the height restriction is there, but it's denser units.
So Oscar can hear too. Yes. So it's denser than what our administrative plan is calling for.
Okay, it's 60. So when we were going to have the max of 2,000, and so now if we're increasing the density towards the front, where are we taking the units away from in the back? What does that become what would have been units? Because they were spread out differently, correct?
You're right. So most likely that would mean less housing in that housing area. So it would come from the flex district, the light blue.
So where they could do a combination of things there, you're saying there probably wouldn't be much housing there because they would put them all towards the boulevard.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Now we have some examples that I know that I requested of heights on Enclave and Twin Towers. And those were, I have a note here. Those were 4 stories,
Yeah.
right? One is Enclave is 4 stories, Twin Towers is 3 stories.
Here's
At the
Enclave.
height restriction that we're putting on the 80 units per acre, how many stories is that?
Going back. That is in the front 35 feet, which
And
is
it-
3 stories.
And again, this is their proposal. The Madam Vice Mayor, option A is their proposal.
Front, 3 stories. And in the back as high as 6 stories.
Yes.
And they're able to accomplish that by probably doing away with housing in the flex zone.
That would be yes. Yes.
So all the housing would be concentrated in one area.
Toward the front. Which, if you think about it, meets the goals, the long-term goals. Think about decades from now when more folks are intended to use the light rail, so it brings them closer to this
To the rail.
station. Yeah.
Right. And yet keeps our height issue, which is one of the big things. I guess I'm still concerned, and maybe if you could outline a sample of doing, so how many, if it's 80 units per acre, so that's an additional 20 units per acre, how many acres are we talking about that are going to add the additional 20?
I'd say it's about 10. So short of 10. I maybe look to,
That's 200 additional units.
it's down to 4. That's about 4, more like 4 acres. So if we math that out, 40 versus 60, 20, 246, 60 more units.
60?
That sound about right? 60.
So it was 4 more acres, did you say?
It's 4 acres total.
4 acres total.
Right.
Yeah. And additional 20 per acre.
20
That's
per acre.
80.
That's 80 units, 80 extra
At
homes.
80 additional units.
Right.
In a space that you had original lined out for 40 to 60. So my question then would just be, is when we went through all the design review options, how does that impact the things that we wanted to see? Does that question resonate? No?
Can you rephrase it?
So when you guys were showing us all the options, this is 40, this is 60, and we were saying, well, we don't like this because it doesn't leave any open space, or it, everybody's looking at walls. So if you're crowding another 80 units into the same space that was already designated, aren't we giving up some open space around the apartment buildings that existed, or the way it was laid out were not? I don't know.
Excellent question. As it is now, we have another little discussion on required open space per unit, and modern development is asking for less
Less open
open space
space?
per. So that's another thing to
More
consider.
units, less open space.
That's yes, that is the ask.
Okay. One last thing, and then we can move on. This thing is done in phases, correct?
Technically it's on the property owner side. They can, once they have this, once the plan's adopted, say in the next year or so, whenever it gets done, the developer can build to what their plans are. Obviously, they have to get permits and they have to go through the planning commission.
I
but-
guess what the question I'm trying to get at is how much flexibility do we have moving forward, John, to change the plan?
We do have a flexibility, actually. So in the future, if the property owner decides not to build, say that you adopt the plan in December, whenever it is, it's final, you go with what our recommendation is and not what theirs is. And then in 10 years, they decide, okay, now we want to develop. The train's gone through. We see more people using the train. We want to apply for an amendment to the Clearwater specific plan. That can be processed at that time. So it can be changed in the future.
So we can amend the plan as we move forward
Absolutely.
and see what things look like and what kind of
Absolutely.
impact they're
Sure.
going to have.
The Union Hall on Rosecrans could actually sell, and maybe a developer wants to put housing there. Our Lady of the Rosary Church, maybe, I don't know, something happens there with the school. You never know. They could, Archdiocese may have plans, to build, residential. I know the Diocese of Orange is doing that. So there are several possibilities that could occur, and amendments could come our way, sure, and we would just have to process them.
Yeah, so I'm anxious to hear about the reduction in open space, because this still just brings me back to my concern that it's even going to be more dense, more crowded, less open space. And I'm still very much of a mind, and we have perfect examples of it in town, when you pile people on top of each other and you don't give them open space and room to breathe and things that make the quality of life good. Then it just becomes a big, pie of trouble instead of what it's intended to be. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, and I'm anxious to hear the rest of the presentation.
Okay, so we have before us the slides now, so it's in coordination with what Mr. King has presented. So Mr. King, take it away.
Yes. So this is basically how it would look. And, given our time constraints, this is kind of the best visual we could do. But this is where you get the kind of flipping back, and it might be helpful if you want to flip with your handouts. So option A, and I'm going to go 2 slides back, admin draft. So we want to look at that, this area here, for example, if we all want to focus on.
John, admin draft is what we initially handed out, what was in the staff report, right?
In the staff report, right?
Okay.
So that's the current plan, basically. So that area between, or just south of the adult school, we'll forward on to this. You can see it's higher, so you get more density. It's kind of hard to tell from the perspective, but you're just adding more homes. You're adding more homes to it.
I got option A.
Okay,
I'm looking for
and
something
then-
that says admin on it. And I'm not,
Go to current plan.
because it's not called option admin.
Yeah.
It's called conceptual study. What?
It's called current plan.
Current plan.
Conceptual study, option A.
Okay. Here we go. And that's the administrative plan.
Yes,
What you're
yes. Administrative plan is current plan. And that's what staff's recommendation is. Option A is what the Bianchis were, Modern Development Corporations, what their recommendation
So
is.
if we pin it down to these two, or are we where we need to be?
Pretty much. And
Option A.
We have
is
a couple
the
other-
administrative plan.
we have a B and a C we can go through.
And if we wanted to do like to like, what would I do? Option A and administrative
Love
plan?
You would go, So this is apples to apples. So this right. Option A and current plan. This is
Okay, this is apples to
staff's,
apples.
this is what's in the current plan, and this is what the a Modern Development Corporation is.
Okay.
So, option A is Modern Development Proposal.
Okay. Can we just have a minute to maybe, now that we know it's apples
Marinate a
to
little
apples,
bit.
to do some comparisons and see if we need to formulate any questions? Does everybody have the two? Okay, okay.
John, go back to option A, there you go.
On the current plan, the administrative plan, the back corner by the rail that is in purple,
Okay,
right? Conceptual study of development current plan, right? And then on the option A request, it's the yellow, right?
yes.
So just can tell me what the difference is there, because I don't remember the color coding stuff, so I can write it on there.
This is going to, like, flex to town residential.
So
Yeah,
they
I
want
believe you're right.
residential, and we had it, no, we wanted residential back there, because this says no, this is a request, so I'll let you tell me, because it doesn't go with what's in my head.
Do you understand what she's asking for, John?
No, I'm sorry, which area?
Go to the current plan. Keep going, keep going.
That's it.
No. Go to this version.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
There you go. So,
And then admin draft,
which is,
oh, those aren't the two I have up, I just want to make sure I have, okay, you're calling it admin draft there, current plan here, right?
No, you need to go to current.
So I'm looking at conceptual study of development dash current plan.
right.
that's the same.
Is
Yeah.
this one and that one the same?
That's the same.
Okay, so this is also the admin draft. Now, on mine, that left corner up by where it says rail corridor,
Mm-hmm.
in the printed out copy I have here,
It says purple.
no, go down, well, unless I'm, got my streets. Look at, they're facing the same way, right? So it's this to this, right? No, so go straight across to, New Street.
No,
Stay up at the top of the map and go over to the left. Stay at the top, move all the way to the left to New Street.
no, so to the left.
No, we're on the wrong side. Straight up, there you go. On my handout, that's purple. Okay, so what I want to know is and then on their request, it's yellow. What does that mean? What's that difference mean?
What to do?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
I'm from MIT.
Yes. So the purple indicates a light industrial kind of creative manufacturing land use, or it could be an office land use as well. We updated it just so that the current admin draft and all of the options are consistent. So the current admin draft and any of the options, they could all have that purple area. The difference between them is we wanted to show the difference in the allowed densities and allowed heights between the three different options. So that difference in heights and densities only shows up in the residential development. So the current
On purple between option A and current plan, you're basically saying they mean the same thing. They're light industrial?
No, the current plan and admin draft are the same. So the view that we're looking at on the screen
Yes.
and in your
I
handout.
meant option A and current plan.
Well, let's forget about option A for a second. We're
Okay.
just looking at admin draft and current plan, and they are the exact same thing. And one is showing purple and one is not showing purple. That is entirely up to the property owner to decide what they want to develop. They can choose to have no purple uses, or they can choose to have only residential uses as it's currently in the admin draft.
So I guess your question is purple industrial, it's that neo-industrial?
Correct.
Okay, there's the
Okay.
answer.
And you want me to forget about option A? And I can,
For the moment, and then we can answer your questions on that. But I think the main thing is against the rail tracks, the developer in the current admin draft of the specific plan, they have the option to build all housing as we're viewing on the screen right now, or they can add in some of the purple neo-industrial uses if they want. They have that option.
and option A, which is the plan that they like, they're proposing housing. it's
This is not what the developer is proposing at all. This is our interpretation of what could be built there based upon the requirements
I thought
of.
option A was what they said they wanted.
It is, well, the densities and the heights are what are requested by the property owner. This is not what they would build exactly. This is, again, just our interpretation. It would be their own architects that would develop what those buildings would look like. They may orient the buildings, turn them 90 degrees. They may, we can't tell a property owner exactly what they can build on their property at a conceptual level.
I
We
don't
can
think
ju-
I'm asking that. I think I'm just asking, is there a different use? In option A, which is what our understanding is, and anybody correct me here who can help me get clarity, if option A is what we were told modern development is in favor of. Is that correct?
That's, yes, my understanding.
Okay, on the
they
current
can't-
plan conceptual drawing, there's purple, where on the other one there's yellow. You're saying the purple is light industrial. If they like option A, it's in yellow. Is that because they're saying they want that to be housing?
They can build purple for option A as well too. It's up to,
So the color means nothing.
the colors do mean different uses. They have the option to still build the purple if they want to in option A. And in the current admin draft, in the current plan, they have the option to not build any purple. They can build all housing if they want to in that area under the current admin draft.
Okay, I still don't understand it
so
all. Do you, anybody?
So current plan, you're saying is optional, either or, right?
I'm sorry?
Current plan, the purple section is optional.
It is optional.
It's optional. They're giving us like this is what can go there,
Correct.
right? This is optional.
And that's what I'm hearing is the same here.
And then when they're showing us option A,
He's saying it's optional too.
it's,
It's just,
That's why I said colors don't mean anything, right?
well,
Well, what do you mean by density and height for option A? You just pointed out the yellow, you said density and height. Does that mean higher buildings?
Yeah.
Um,
Is how many units per
How many
acre, and height is how tall they are.
Okay, so if you have the current plan admin draft, you have light industrial land, right? They can land use, or they can have homes, correct?
they can do either one, correct.
Either or. So if the developer decides, well, you know, we're gonna go with density and height, then they can just scratch that plan and just do what they want with option A for density and height? No?
they,
that's why I think that's why we're talking about like the density
Yeah, I'm
structure,
trying to
but
follow really closely.
I think Jose can kind of,
Can we,
Kyle,
actually, we should really be looking, this is just conceptual.
yeah.
Can we go back to the colored map, because I think that's going to be the most useful? Okay, so let me just real briefly kind of explain the different colors, and that's what the pictures kind of help represent. The red area is called the mixed-use town center. So that allows, it still allows residential, it still allows commercial, and it allows those higher heights.
I hate to interrupt you.
Yes,
but I
no,
need to
absolutely.
know
Go
what I'm
ahead.
Looking at. So at the top here, it says option A,
Correct.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the plan that modern development's okay with.
That's
this is
correct.
It's their preferred plan.
That's their preferred plan at the moment.
That's all I want to know.
Okay. Do you want me to continue to talk about the different colors? The blue area, I want to make that really clear. That is the flex area. there is a allowed use table that shows the different allowed uses. So it gives them, hence the flex zone, gives them a lot of flexibility of what they can build there. They can build residential, they could build commercial, and they can build the light industrial. They can include a mixture of those. And so that provides a lot of flexibility, and that's why we designed it in the back. If they wanted to do a little food hall, they want to do a mixed-use building, a little office building, those can all be all mixed in there. The orange area is just purely residential at that height and density. Now that the yellow area that shows a drop in the building. Keep in mind, the density number is the maximum they can go. They cannot go over that maximum. We won't talk about state laws and affordable housing density bonuses. That is the maximum density. They could build something maybe a little bit lower. With that reduction in the height, they might have to build a few less units. Keep in mind, density varies by the size of the units. For example, if they build more studios, you can get a higher density. If they build more 3 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms, the density is going to be lower. What they can't do is go beyond that maximum density. Yes. Well, they vary by those individual uses. The flex zone, the maximum density is 40.
Yes, and the density is, there's a state requirement and there's a max, and they can go up to, right now, 80 units per acre.
On particular zones, that's correct.
But you made the most important statement to me in helping to make this decision, if I understood you correctly, which is my concept of it. Depending upon the density is what kind of apartments you're going to get. All little studios or like family apartments with space.
And that number can vary. That number can mix. Yes, depends on what they
Be
propose.
a certain
Correct.
number of each one, a mixed thing.
Correct.
If they go to the 80, the likelihood is there's going to be more studios in order to fit them all in.
Correct. And usually what they do is they'll do market studies to figure out what is the demand, because the challenge of building housing really depends on what the demand is at the market at that time. So yes, so you're correct.
And when you say demand, is that meaning like people are looking for more apartments or townhomes?
You know what?
Single family, yeah.
That's correct. As interest rates change, you'll see developers push for more apartments as opposed to condos, because condos now become more expensive because of the interest rate, right? So, and all those factor in. And so hence why we built some flexibility, because we don't know what's going to happen in the next 5, 10, 15 years. So there's some flexibility built into the plan. And also that also adds to the argument of the transfer of development rights between if they build certain money units, but they don't meet that, there's still room for additional units, and they could push those around, but they do have to get city approvals for transferring some of that density, but they cannot go over that 2,000 maximum.
Can I ask too, just for the council, what the timeline on this is when? Like seriously, we were talking about this today, but there's not even like, nothing's happening yet, right? This could be like 5, 10 years.
That's exactly right. So
No, but I was like,
it's decades.
it's decades.
It's decades to build out. If they ever, we're back to the Jack in the Box. If Jack in the Box ever wants to go away, I'll give a real world example. In Anaheim by Angel Stadium, there's an area called the Platinum District, and there's a lot of 6 or 7 story buildings or apartments, 4 or 5, 6, there's a whole range. You'll find that the Jack in the Box that was there in the 70s is still there. They're building around Jack in the Box. They're building around McDonald's because they're highly profitable. So we don't see Jack in the Box going away. And then maybe the building in the back, but even that, it's well leased. If you go to Rosecrans and Garfield, that one has that vacant upstairs for many, many years until recently, it's still vacant. I could see that if that property was open, that might be redeveloped. But that building is almost always leased up. It's going to be many, many years in all reality before you see a change there.
Well, it's many, many years until possible construction, but we do have a time frame on this, because my understanding is we needed to wrap this up as far as
Grants.
our vision of what we wanted to
plan.
do the first part of April in order to get the submission in on time for the grant.
You're right. You're almost there. Yep.
That's why the urgency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But it could be changed.
Before you leave,
Don't go far.
one last question. So, in you explaining the different zones and why it was there, I get it. And so, would it have made sense for me to compare apples to apples if the conceptual drawing like this had made this purple to show that it's a flex zone still for them to do either or?
But I think
We updated the admin draft one to show only residential. So we updated it to make it apples to apples consistent. We just did it the other way and showing all residential. Because the residential
Because
is,
that's what I'm saying. So it's yellow because they're proposing residential?
it could have been residential before as well too, in the current.
Right, because it had flexibility.
Correct.
But now they're saying, but we want to go with housing.
They may have always, we don't know their development plans for sure. They may have always wanted to do all housing, or it was just, we thought that we wanted to show there was that option to have some neo-industrial uses in that area. They could build it there. That's why we showed it.
But it still exists, right?
It's still, that they still have that option.
I'm just trying, I know this sounds a little anal, but I want to make sure that I understand. So it wouldn't have mattered if you'd left it purple, it's still a flex zone, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Sorry, this might make it a little more complicated, but we do have two more options, and they're a little more middle of the road. Well, let's see. This one's going, and I have a chart. We'll get to the, maybe we might want to jump to the chart, but a side by side to compare it all. But this, you can see at the top is 100, 80, 40, 80. This next one is 180, 40, 40. This one lowers this section to 40. So it's kind of a trade-off. So in this concept, the very top goes up to 100. So if you're open to going from 90 to 100 units per acre, but as a trade-off, reduce this area down here to 40. Get it down to 40. So that's what this page is. Option B. It's hard to see the difference, so I don't know if we need to dwell on
No, go to option
this.
C.
And option C is what we kind of talked about at the very end of the last meeting. And the only change to this, it keeps the 80 units per acre at the top. It keeps the, this one, it's 65 units per acre at the top here, and brings the 40, swaps out the 40, but it gives that, what the modern development had originally asked for, what they're calling even more flexibility, a combination zone, which would be either housing, the same high density housing from the very north, or the flexible district. So it's even more flexibility for them. And they had originally asked for this, but they're on to preferring option A. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. So I think the main two to think about are the admin draft, the current plan or admin draft, or option A, but you could also consider B and C. This is where we have it all together. So this is the chart. So the main two we've been talking about are admin draft and option A. And this might be helpful if you have at least one of your sheets next to you to look at, just so you see the zones, the descriptions. But mixed use town center is the area at the very north. So you can imagine that this would be the people who might actually take the rail in the future. They would want to live closer to the rail. It's the densest, so you might attract, we hear about the younger folks that say, yeah, I don't need a car, I would only drive a car every so often. So anyway, that's going from 80 to 100 units per acre, keeping the 6-story height, and maybe a little expansion of the zone area a little bit. Town residential is the 65 units per acre, and modern development is asking for that to go up to 80. So again, the first one is 80 to 100. This one is 65 to 80. Adding another story, except for that little area along the front, the 40 feet on the front. Town residential keeps the same density, but actually goes down to 3 stories. Flex district stays the same between admin drift and A. And that's the gist of it. That's the meat of it all. I'll look at that for a second. And this is all kind of a review of what we talked about. What we haven't really talked about are the bigger changes to they're asking for reduced parking requirements, changes to the setbacks. Setbacks is, how far a building is from a property line or a street or a rail. Open space requirements, reducing the amount of open space. And then reducing the minimum unit size. So if we go through each one, we'll start with parking. Right now, the code is saying, or the proposal is saying for this area to have for every unit, no matter what size, if it's a studio, 3-bedroom, 2 parking spaces. 2 parking spaces per home. The modern development folks would like that reduced, cut in half to 1 per unit. That's for housing. For commercial, this is asking for 3 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. They're asking to reduce that down to 2 per 1,000 square feet. So that's the parking request.
Now, if we're giving you direction, John,
Yes.
right? That's what we hope to do. Shouldn't we take these items one at a time? and just
Absolutely.
talk to us?
Let's do that.
Okay.
That's true.
So, Madam Mayor, do you just want to hear our
Just go
opinions and
ahead,
then
your
formulate?
opinions, formulate
Okay, so
whatever
let's start
makes
with
it easy.
parking. I am not in favor of any parking reduction.
And I,
Same here, the minimum one parking space, I don't like that, nope.
and I, just to kind of devil's advocate kind of thing. We totally hear you, but what we have heard from modern development is they think that if there's a shared parking, if someone wants to shop somewhere and park, that could double as parking for residential. They also mentioned maybe folks who live here would not want would not need as much parking. They might live by a rail station, and that's why they live there. They might have less parking. And they're also saying and possible shared parking, shared cars. Like maybe there's you see these other cities like a mini rental, hourly rental. So they would have that rather than have their own car. So that's one thought.
Yeah, and I
Is
would
there-
just say that hasn't, from my perspective, that might be what they think. That has not been our experience.
Is there a state requirement, I'm sorry, on parking? Or-
There is going forward in the future, and this is what came up in the letter that you received the last
Yeah,
meeting,
you're
and
right.
it mentioned a law, and there is a law in the books when there's a high quality transit area, which means for buses, if there are buses that run every intervals of 15 minutes or less, and intersect, that's a high quality transit area. The thing is here, they run 20 minutes. They don't run 15 minutes or less.
It doesn't qualify.
So it doesn't qualify. If it did qualify, we'd be having a different discussion. We wouldn't be talking about parking like we're doing now.
John, there's no guarantee that the residents are gonna be taking the metro or the bus. They come and they move in, they have 2 cars. Well, they don't wanna do that, so drive, so take the metro, but then let's just say, on weekends, hey, let's go for a family drive, they take the car. So you just can't assume that 7 days a week, residents are gonna take the metro or the bus. It's the resident's decision. This is what I wanna do. Nobody's gonna tell me to take the metro or take the bus, but I want my parking spaces. That's how I feel if I was a resident in the future. That's what I want.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to add something about parking. For the specific plan, the council can put in the parking standards that it feels are the most appropriate and that it wants to see. On the state law issue, AB 2097, The only thing I would add is that there's some uncertainty in the law about whether a future planned rail station, like the rail station proposed on the northeast corner there, just because it's planned and included within SCAG's regional transportation plan, HCD has taken the position that just because it's planned means that we have to begin applying those reduced parking standards. But that's in state law, and the law could change, and that's just HCD's interpretation for now. So my point is that you should plan for what you want to see there, and then, whatever the law is at the time they come in to propose, we'll have to deal with it.
Just like we have to do now. So you need to pull the rest of them.
Yeah, no, for the parking, I actually think that we need to leave the two minimum just because it's, we've seen it everywhere. And again, but this is something, again, that in the future we can come back to it, right? Okay, so yeah, right now I think that it should stay as is and then see what the trends are once we move forward with this plan. But yeah, right now I think the two is what we need.
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Aguayo with the two. That's today, but I mean, it could change. It could change.
That's requirement.
Yes, that's
It's
how
2
it
for
is.
residential, 3 for
Yes.
commercial. So my understanding that it's across the board, nobody wants to change it this time. Is that
No,
what
I'm,
you
o-
guys
I'm
said?
okay with that right
I'm
now.
not sure I missed anything. Okay.
Okay, we'll move forward with that. John, go ahead and move on to setbacks.
Okay, and just a reminder that, so setbacks is the distance from a building to something. So we have a few things here. Set the distance between a building and Paramount Boulevard or Rosecrans. We have, those are the first two categories. A distance from a building and one of the interior streets, whether it's Bianchi Way, America City Way, or a new street. And then we have setbacks from the rail corridor, primarily the Union Pacific or Long Beach, Port of Long Beach.
John, can you go back to the map and so we can specifically show them each one of those? Keep going. Right there. Okay, stop right here. This is just a map showing. So what John was saying, Rosecrans and Paramount Boulevard. So any building that goes in at those locations along Paramount Boulevard or along Rosecrans Avenue, picture a setback, whether it be 15 feet, 20 feet, 100 feet, whatever it is, from the curb or the sidewalk to the start of the building. That is your setback area, essentially. It could be landscape setback. It could be some other type of setback. Now, when he said the rail corridor, that's along that long area there. So again, the setback is from where the rail corridor property line is to the building. So right now we have that green space right there. I think it's currently at 100 feet. We'll go back to the chart in a minute. And that's what that would be. The small streets that he was referring to, you've got All America City Way, you've got Bianchi, you've got the proposed streets, which are the black hash lines there, that could go in if there was a development there. Now there's a setback from that sidewalk or that curb face to the building. How far do you want to go back so it is? Okay, so let's go back to the chart now. Okay, so you've got what I just explained to you on Paramount and Rosecrans, a minimum of a 15 feet setback. Are you good with that? Modern development wants to reduce it. Our recommendation is that it be a 15-foot setback on Paramount or Rosecrans if the unit is a minimum of 3 feet above the sidewalk grade. Explain what that is, John.
Sometimes you have a little step up, and that's for different reasons, for water runoff and whatnot. So in those cases, if the home is raised a little bit, I could pull up an example in a moment. That would allow the building to be 10 feet from the property line. 15 feet is the same that we have for our multiple family residential zone. For example, Arthur, McClure, the Gas Streets Petrol, Richfield, those are RM zones. Right now, they have a 15-foot setback. The home has to have at least 15 foot of open space in the very front. That's if there's residential. So the reason is it kind of helps the residents, so you don't have they're not so close to a busy road, and for
Or sidewalk.
we're all about sustainability.
I was going to ask, what's
Yeah.
the sidewalk?
Yeah.
Being like the curb 15 feet to the home, that's what I envision right now.
Actually, no, it's
You said 15 feet to the home, but does that mean the street curb?
it's actually from the
sidewalk.
So we don't really have a sidewalk here, but imagine, well, if this green space was the sidewalk, then it would start from that line. Usually it's where the sidewalk begins. So you have street, you might have a green strip, then you have the sidewalk, then property line.
Yeah,
So it's 15 feet from there.
from the street.
From the sidewalk.
Because like the new houses that were built by the Kings, so their fence is like
Rosaba.
right on the sidewalk. So what's their
The
setback?
wall.
There's a wall. They actually 10 feet. That's actually 10 feet.
That's 10 feet.
That's 10 feet.
Really?
Because you have the wall and then they have a
Grass
backyard.
area and then a house.
Yeah,
You
they have a
little grass
backyard
area.
and then their house. Yeah. Yeah. So that's technically a 10-foot setback. So,
Pretty small.
Can we go back to the
Sidewalk.
grid? So the recommendations on the right-hand side are what you're like, we're okay with, meaning this is what we're recommending.
Yeah, or 10. And just plain kind of devil's advocate. So,
Yeah.
so what they're saying is if you want, this is the new kind of, exciting, vibrant, like Americana or the Grove, like that kind of thing. Those types of developments typically they can be closer to the property line. But you'll see on the second category, if there is ground floor commercial, that brings it down to 5 feet. That's a 5-foot setback to, kind of liven up the front of the to activate the street, as they say.
But we're recommending it's okay for a 0 setback on that.
We're saying that
You wrote
we may
it.
want to think about that. Yeah, maybe a couple of feet. Yeah, maybe want a couple of feet just to have a little planting. So
And why do we write that?
why
I'm
did
sorry.
why is it is that what the consultant wrote?
that's what they wrote. Yeah.
Okay.
So in retrospect, probably 2 feet.
Yeah, we want at least some sort of setback. So we're all familiar with where the Habit and Chipotle is, right? Okay, that's a 0 setback. Basically the restaurants are right up to that. If
Up to the sidewalk.
right, so that's a 0 setback. If you're okay with that for this type of plan, this type of area, we can go with that. But if you want a little bit of a setback, and this is for commercial property, and that's why I gave the example of Chipotle and the Habit. If you want a little bit of a setback, we can put that in as well. So,
I'm okay with the recommendation side on this one. I mean, it's flexible.
all right,
There's like flexibility here.
yeah, okay.
Is it in, okay, I guess let me reread and see. For residential, but you're okay with the 0 setback for commercial?
No, I'm asking for these, what the recommendations are. 70 feet. So commercial,
Well, that's the
0.
rail corridor. We're on everything.
Right.
So there's a 0 recommendation for commercial property.
But he was saying, that's what the consultant wrote, but we're saying 2 or 3.
That's what I'm
2 or 3
saying.
feet.
So
Right.
not
That has
what's
to be-
here, but with the change.
I would say 2.
Because the
Or-
zeros, like, I don't like how the Habit turned out
Okay.
there on the corner without any setback and green space. It really
Okay.
takes away from the visual of the whole corner.
Yeah,
So,
Okay, fair
yeah,
enough.
I wouldn't want a 0 on commercial.
okay.
You're saying that we could do a 3?
Yeah, 2 or 3
3.
Okay.
for the commercial. But let's go back to the residential, if you're comfortable,
So
if all
wanna
4 of
take
you.
Each setback one
Yeah,
at a
let's do
time?
that. Okay, so let's go back up to the residential. Originally, we wanted 15. Modern Development requested a reduced setback. We're recommending to stay with the 15-foot setback and also go with the 10-foot if the residential development is up high, say the 3 feet off the ground, if there's like stairs, then we'll reduce it to 10. So you're basically lifting. John, do you have a photo of that? You said you had something.
Of that, I don't believe I do. But
Okay, no.
I have a photo,
worries.
but I don't think it.
We
Well,
can
it-
show you later on if that's something that you would.
What you're talking about
Okay,
personally,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. So how do you feel about that? You want to go with new recommendation, the administrative draft, or modern development's request to reduce it?
Madam Mayor, I'm in favor of the recommendation of the 15, 10, and 3.
Okay.
I just don't know from modern development what the reduced setback is, or you guys don't have a number for us to determine. So that's okay. I mean, it would have been good to see what you guys wanted.
I think they want as much as possible.
I'm sorry?
They
As
want
much as
it
possible.
reduced as much as you would ask, as you would allow.
One of the applicants in the audience, Madam Mayor, is raising their hand. Would you like to hear from?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. This is a tough process. We're making sausage right now. It's a little concerning. One of the things that, if you've seen this specific plan, that we've been trying to do is realize what's in the pictures of the specific plan. If you look at those pictures on the specific plan, there is an activated space along the streets, the internal streets. If you have a setback, we're just trying to figure out where the setback is from the street. The concerning part was the principal surrounding streets, Rosecrans, Somerset, and Paramount. If you look at the pictures again in the specific plan, you have an activated space along those. And now we have sidewalk, a setback, and then the building or the activated space. We're just trying to realize what's in the pictures of the specific plan. And then in terms of things like open space and parking, you're asking the developer to provide public spaces, public parks. So in order to provide a public park, we need to move things around. If you notice in those exhibits, you have like a soccer field in the middle where the flex space is and some of the other spaces. So we have to take away from there and put it elsewhere. So in order to provide these public amenities, we have to move things around with the open space and share in those spaces. So just be mindful of that. But the concern with and we thought we would have the opportunity to kind of get into those issues because I think the biggest issue is density right now, because that's going to drive all your environmental review. It's going to drive where the cars come in, come out. We're really flexible with the internal streets. We're willing to cut some of those off and move things around so that most of your traffic goes on Rosecrans and Somerset, and little to no on Paramount. So we're willing to hash those out. But to us, in order to make those pictures come to reality, there's some give and take. Yeah, that's why we have the step back, not the setback, the step back away from the streets, so to make this all a reality. So we have to figure out how to provide those public amenities on private property. And that's one of the ways to do that, is to move things around. Because I know we're going to talk about open space soon, and you can't envision those pictures in those specific plans without having to move things around. Build higher, build more, move some of the parking. You don't allow public or standalone parking spaces, as an example, right? Why not? If I'm going to do like a public parking for the date night, if I want to do development around the movie theater and have restaurants and then have more development, it's not just for Friday night, but we need to program it for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Not Tuesday because we have city council meetings, but Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. Then we have to figure out how to do that and make a profit and give the public the opportunity to have that opportunity to go this. This is not a subdivision. This is not two-car garage, family. No offense. This is a lifestyle center. This is a place you want to, if you want to move there, you're going to know that there's people going to be walking around at night on Friday nights, on Saturdays, Sundays, maybe there's going to be festivals. I live in Long Beach next to the Grand Prix. That's happening right now. So I know I'm going to experience those. I moved there for a reason. So please consider those differences. And that's what we're trying to just achieve there. It's those pictures that you guys are all looking at the specific plan. And this is one of the ways to do that. Thank you.
Okay, as no specific amount was given, what would you like to do with the commercial? Maintain it at the minimum for 5-foot setback. Okay for 0 setback. This would be on Paramount and Rosecrans for commercial.
Did I not hear you say that upon further review, you would say 3, or did I mishear that?
2 to 3.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
2
sorry about that. Yeah.
2 or 3.
2 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm okay with that
2 to 3.
reduction to 3.
Okay. All right, so now interior streets, ground floor residential, and we'll move on to that. There was in the administrative draft, what's currently reads is a 10-foot setback, and these are the smaller streets, the soon-to-be-built streets. Modern development didn't, it looks like didn't have any feedback or request there, but we'll go ahead and reduce it down to a 6-foot setback if you're okay with that.
Okay with that?
Okay. The same thing with commercial with the new streets. It is at 5. They, again, would like to reduce the setback for commercial. We're okay with 0 setback or 2 to 3, right, John? I think you're
Yeah.
more comfortable with 2 to 3.
Oh, you just said you're okay with 0 or 2 to 3?
2 to 3.
Yeah, just like the one above.
Yeah.
You could say 2 to 3. I mean,
Everybody's comfortable with that?
That gives you flexibility.
yeah, 2 to 3.
Okay. Great. Okay, here's the biggie now on the rail corridor. This is that long rail corridor stretch that we looked about. When it comes to residential, we have currently in the draft, in the admin draft, 100-foot setback. That is from the rail line to the wall of the residential property. Modern development is requesting 20 feet. We're saying we're not comfortable with that small of a setback because of the trains, the noise, whatever the pollution. So we'd like to bend a little bit, but not go down to 20 feet. We're comfortable more with 70 feet.
Madam Mayor, may I? I would just say, yeah, I mean, I would even, stick with the 100. There have been so many safety issues with trains running behind residentials and, the accidents happening and, homes being destroyed. I think there's environmental issues when you have everything that's kicked up from rail going, there's noise issues. There's nothing pleasant about living next to railroad tracks. And there's nothing safe about living next to railroad tracks. So if staff is still saying with those concerns from me that they feel 70 feet will cover that, I prefer the 100.
I'll go with the 70 because I think if residents are going to know that they're going to move into a place that has railroads, they're going to run into those issues. That's their choice, right? And not in a mean
It's
way.
not your choice when there's a train wreck and it comes
Well,
barreling
I'm not
through
saying
your
that, but
house.
we're saying, you're saying the noise and the, I mean,
No, I
that's,
didn't say that. I said the news recently is filled with railroad train accidents and cars spilling over and taking out people's homes, and the environmental issues with how close it is when there's spills. And you may know, and the railroads change all the time. I live in a railroad track area, and what it was when we moved in there is not what it is today. Once those rail lines are open, you don't know what's going to travel against them. You don't know what height limits, what products, any of those things that they're going to allow. So I'm speaking merely from a public safety issue and being by one. That's just my concern.
yeah.
Also, children, they have a habit of playing on the railroad tracks if they're not being monitored. Anything can happen. I agree with you. I would like to see the 100 stay.
I'll go for recommendations on 70.
I'm going to go with the recommendation on this one as well.
So you have a split.
Okay, that's always fun.
Want to go with 80 and eat the
Compromise on
difference?
this?
I mean, the recommendation is 70. They could have went with an 80 recommendation, right?
But the original, that's them trying to compromise. The original admin draft was 100, which is more reasonable.
If I could,
You have to live by tracks to understand all of the things that are involved.
modern development's perspective, what they've brought up is, and this may be valid, I'll let you decide, with extra space that would be more difficult to prevent homeless encampments or the homeless that currently do use that area as a, kind of their highway. So they brought up the public safety.
Let me
aspect.
ask you do you guys know what the setback is, for instance, over on Racine, so I have something comparable?
Facade?
Yeah.
Facade.
Both on Facade and Racine, but only Facade is active.
Facade where the active track is. Well, it would just be the backyards, right? Because the
right there.
the fence line is built right up alongside the railroad property.
Is it that's like a lot. That's more than 100 feet. That's probably more like what? I'm so bad at.
Well,
It's the width of a house and a half. I can tell you
Between
that,
the
those backyards.
track and the backyard fence?
No, but to the property, like you said, the setback would be their backyard.
Yeah.
Well, that fits like a house and a half.
So you're saying where the track is and the backyard fence, that would fit a house and a half?
No.
Oh,
But when you're taking, that's like the setback from the fence, but till it reaches the property owner, when it reaches a house, it's like the width of a house.
Well,
I would say between the fence and the tracks, that's what, probably 10 feet, 20 feet?
20 feet, I believe. And they are going to move that track over. Metro is, by the way, as we all know, when they
I
have
know,
to
but
pay-
in between that, you have a block wall and you have a backyard.
A backyard.
That's hundreds
Sure.
of feet.
Yeah, some of those backyards are smaller, just, and some of they've built.
Not the majority of
Okay,
them.
okay,
Everything along the back of those tracks, unless they've added on.
right. They've
Yeah.
added on, yeah,
Exactly,
exactly.
yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah. So if those are, if those, yeah, it's still like a couple hundred feet, so,
So we have a split vote.
I personally, like I said, I would advocate on the side of safety and keep them as far away as you could. If their only issue of concern is homeless encampments, we've seen them camp in 5 feet on the side of a freeway. That's not going to make any difference. If that's what the main concern is a homeless person being back there. If they've got enough room to set up a tent, then they're going to be there. So I would just err on the side of caution and put as much distance between those tracks and a home as possible.
Okay. Well, we can always bring this back to get, immediate direction, or if
And
there's
it's one of
comfort
those
going to
things that
80,
could
85.
we not have flexibility with, depending upon what development
Yeah,
they want to do?
absolutely. If a developer comes in, yeah.
Yeah.
And they want to, or if the Bianchis come in and they want to build residential and they want to push for a lower
But
setback.
that makes a
and-
difference too, what's going to be up against the
Sure.
truck. If it's,
Yeah,
you know,
which leads us to our next one, which is non-residential. With the current plan has a 40-foot, they want to go to 20. We're saying, again, keep a little bit of buffer there, but this is, again, where you can be more flexible, so.
Residential. Okay, so then what's residential? Minimum
The recommendation is 35, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
35. I'm okay with the recommendation.
okay, all right. Open space requirement. Is there
Everybody
any-
else agree to that? Okay.
Yeah. Open space requirement. John, you want to quickly touch on this, what it means, and then we'll
It's
go over that.
this is where there's a ask for a lot less. So now it's between 100 to 200 square feet per home per unit, and they're asking to get that down to 50. And with in general, we're okay when it comes to the density. We kind of work backwards, and the reason we started with 100 to 200 square feet per unit was so we can get the recommended amount of park space per person. And I think Jose can help me out with that. Is that 1,000 square feet?
We're referring to the open space requirements. Jose,
Open
if you can
space,
come up with the.
There's
the
that
problem.
calculation for the not necessarily the Quimby Act, but Trust for the Public Land and just.
I'll tell you what, as Jose's working on that, why don't we skip over to minimum unit size? Jose, we'll bring you back up to the podium. This is pretty simple to understand. The minimum unit size for a studio, 500 to 600 square feet is what's in the current plan. In modern development, we'd like to reduce that to 400 square feet. And John, what is the recommendation here?
And this is one of these market driven. So a lot of developers are looking for the micro units. They're getting smaller, 200 to 250 square feet, if you can believe it. We're actually okay on the studio side to get them down to 450 square feet. It's a little small, but look at it this way: a two car garage is typically 400 square feet. So you're adding a little more to a 2-car garage, if you kind of envision that. A studio. So what's a studio? Studio is, kind of all in one. The bedroom, the living room, the kitchen. It's pretty much all in one.
Kind of means you
bathroom.
can cook and make your bed at the same time, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
and with there was a time when you call it a bachelor or
Yeah.
a bachelor.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. So they kind of went out of fashion, but they're back, and the reason is just affordability. Adult children want to leave the nest, and that's what developers are providing that possibly they could afford.
So the question becomes, do you want to stay with what's in the admin draft, go down to 400 square feet for all zones, or go with the recommendation that it would vary by zone? And once again, they can be changed as an amendment for about 450 square feet for a studio.
$400 to $450, $650 to $7, $90 to $25. And the recommendations look good on this one. It's close.
What? What'd you say?
I mean, it's not, what they're asking is not far what the recommendations are either, you know what I mean?
It's further from the original, but that's what I was trying to understand. This says varies for zone, and it says varies for zone about 450 square feet minimum. And they want it for all zones. And so if it varies for zones, but even in the variation, you're saying it has to be a minimum of 450 square feet, John?
Right.
Okay. And this one would have allowed for the zones to go up to 600, between 5 and 600 originally. But you're saying with like the parking trade-off thing and stuff that you think 450 is reasonable.
450 is
right?
reasonable. Yep.
I agree, Madam Mayor.
Okay, we got that one. The one bedroom, 750 to 900 was in the draft. Modern Development is requesting a reduction to 650. Again, we would vary it for zone, but it would be about 700 square feet is where we would want to land.
Madam Mayor, I'm okay with staff's recommendation of 700.
Yes, I agree. Reading the numbers, and that sounds very reasonable. Recommendation 700.
So I just want to make sure though, because you guys, it's all zones versus vary for zones too, so.
It says vary for zone.
Yeah, that's what the recommendation was. The admin draft is varies for zone recommendations, but theirs is all zones. There's a difference, right? I mean,
Yeah, they want 650 for all zones.
Yeah.
And I would want the flexibility to vary at 700.
That'd be the base. No,
The base.
no less than that anywhere throughout the plan area.
varies for zone, all zones.
And
Okay,
they
the
want no
flexi-
matter what the zone is to go.
Yeah, I'm
with the
curious,
smallest.
why would you guys not want vary for zones? Wouldn't that work in your favor though? Instead of, well, I mean, isn't vary for zones and all zones kind of the same?
No.
Vary per zone versus all zones, right? So all
would
zones,
mean
everything.
I
Vary
suspect
by-
townhome versus.
Okay,
If
everything.
I'm on-
if we
educate
can
me
maybe
on this one.
expand that to get a little lower. Right now, our recommendations are based upon current market conditions, what the market will bear near here. But this is a 10, 15, 20, 30-year document. We don't know. That's why we keep talking about flexibility. We don't know what the market will bear. So if we have a wider range from 400 to whatever it is for a studio, et cetera, that would help us out and trying to better understand what the market demands are and what we can accommodate through the specific plan. Thank you.
And that's, to me, that's
Exactly.
what 450 does, gives the most. It says varies for all zones instead of restricted to all zones. So they can vary it, and there's still quite a reduction on our part down from a possible 600. I'm okay with staff's recommendation.
Okay, for the studio and the one bedroom as well?
I get everybody's nodding, okay.
Okay. Two bedroom, 11 to 1,200 was what in the admin draft. Modern Development wanted to go down to 925. We are looking at 950, and it would again vary by zones for two bedroom.
Can I just ask another question? I'm sorry. So let's say that you guys are building, right, and market changes. Now, is this able to be changed? We talked about this
Yes.
earlier. I think there was, and you can, right?
Yes.
We're just building a
Yes.
model right now, right? That's
Right.
kind of, we're just building like a shell,
Yeah,
right?
right, Correct. It can be amended. Go ahead.
It's okay.
Yeah.
By the way, my name is
Vision.
Oscar Orsi. I work for, through Pat West, I work for Bo. So sorry about that. I've been a community development director for 30 plus years in various cities in Southern California, including the last city, Long Beach. But what we're trying to do, and again, we're making sausage, so I commend you. Usually that sausage happens elsewhere.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do is address a potential envelope. The pictures and all the imagery that you see are maximums. You know, we talked last time about affordable housing as an example. Yeah, of course we're going to consider that. We're going to consider a few other things too, but we're trying to get that flexibility so that we can build. We're not going to necessarily go to those highest. And by the way, you did set a ceiling. 2,000 is the ceiling. We're never going to exceed that, right? We're not going to exceed that. We are building within that envelope. We just need to move things around. So for unit sizes and things like that, it's just, okay, give us a range, and we're going to try and find market conditions. And we're talking about 20 plus years in some cases to be able to do some of these things. So that's kind of where we are.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I answered your question. I'll be more than happy to.
No, I'm just saying because I think we're building a shell, but the shell can be adjusted. I guess that's what I just want to clarify that.
And we need that flexibility right now, unfortunately. You're trying to, well, it's difficult. You're looking at a crystal ball and you're trying to figure out what's going to happen. Is the rail even going to come in, right? You hope it does, because that will then change and dictate other development scenarios. So what we want is that the most reasonable envelope shell that you can give us so that we can figure out what to do.
So let me ask you, John, if we were just to go say, okay, let's do all zones, and they come back and they're just like, okay, this is what we want to build. Can we adjust it as a city to say, well, now we want to do 450?
Yeah, we can adjust it, right, Nick? I mean, that's
We're
something
giving
we
them
can
the
do.
flexibility, right now, because it's a shell, and as they're developing, they come back with their plans, and then we can
Right.
adjust that way. I'm just saying maybe it's
Yeah, if
backwards.
they have a
but-
development that is ready to go, they come in and request an amendment to the specific plan, say in 3 years from now or 10 years from now. And they're requesting a reduction in the size of the units. Sure, I'll defer this to the city attorney. That's
I
great.
think the earlier comment that it's typical for a developer to come in with their proposed specific plan is apt. That's correct. I imagine that when the development team puts all their plans together and submits them, they may request a couple of specific plan amendments. And that will have to come to you, and you'll consider that specific plan amendment. There's nothing that precludes them from
Sure.
requesting.
It's just easier to request it now as we're developing the plan,
Right.
obviously. So, if,
Or at least say, okay, we're okay with 700, but not 1,000. So you're just giving a broad picture,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
and they might come back and say, oh, well, we want to reduce this here, we want even less.
Mhm.
Or, you know, in this 2-unit, you know, this block of units, we need another 100 more. And so I do see that,
Mhm.
that it's flexible, or
Yes,
it
the
says, you know, it can
flexibility
vary
comes-
from
yes.
zone to zone, but you do have a minimum. But even if you set a minimum, you could come in with a proposal that's just like, oh, that's too good to turn down at 450.
yeah.
So
And
then
if it's just-
why wouldn't you do all zones then? If you're saying that, that's a great example. Maybe I'm beating the horse here. I'm just saying, but if we're trying to be flexible, just say all zones, let them come back and figure
Because
out.
they have to have a starting point, is the best way I know how to explain it. You have to know, what am I working from a minimum?
Yeah.
Because here's my minimum at 700. If you don't give me a minimum, I'm gonna start my own minimum at 1,000.
Well, they did 400, all zones. They gave us a minimum, right?
For the studio.
Yeah, well, for all,
Oh.
400, 659, they gave us.
Yeah, and so our decision is, no, we don't want if we made our decision.
Yeah.
We don't want your base vision to be 400. We want your base vision to be 450. That's the decision you make. Like here we said, no, our vision is that those are a minimum of 500 to 600 square feet. They're saying our vision is 400. We're saying, okay, then we'll compromise and go 450 vision, because it's that starting point. So if you tell them 400, I'm not saying can.
Yeah.
If you tell them it's 400, then that's the starting point that they're going to go from. And if that's really not what you wanted all to begin with, then you haven't given them a true vision.
No, I get that. I guess maybe I'm just confused with all zones versus very zones. That's where I think I'm not understanding that. But
And if I may, great discussion, by the way. No, this
That's
is what
what we
this
do.
is what it's all about. So I appreciate you
That's
for
kinda
that.
what we do.
I appreciate you.
Slaps me later.
And keep in mind, you're setting a foundation, the shell,
Yeah.
and that also includes your infrastructure needs,
Yeah.
your circulation impacts, all this stuff that factors into setting the shell. So if you will, when you set a variable or you set a maximum, we're also then now going to consider how big is your piping, how big do you need, what improvements do you need to do on the streets, inside the project as well as outside, what's your traffic distribution models. So all this shell has other impacts, like what's going to be the impact on the student housing, you know. So we need to establish the vision, if you will, as was said. And we started off by looking at the pictures again in the specific plan, and we thought to ourselves, how do we make this happen? How do we make this Friday date night a location? So that's kind of where all our requests are coming from. So again, thank you.
I'm okay with staff's recommendation.
Okay, so staff recommendations on all the minimum unit size. Before I step away, that was the last, John?
That's the last for that page.
Okay.
We just have, just for
Okay.
open space. Oh, we were going to go back to the open space. That's right. We kind of jumped ahead. So, and I think Jose you're going to look at how we work backwards to get to the open space calculation. Yeah, that. Yes, there's like a kind of an industry standard for how much open space a city should have by population.
I think your mic is on.
Oh, push the button.
Can you press your mic button?
Apologize, thank you. So there are industry standards that vary by city sizes, but typically a standard for Paramount, I know the Parks and Recreation Master Plan was recently adopted. There are no specific standards in there, but around 3 acres per thousand is kind of one of those standards. Here we have 2,000 units. If we average 2 point something persons per house, you can kind of back into it that way.
That's the formula. So we worked backwards from there to get the minimum of 100 to 200 square feet of common open space per unit. So common means open to the general public. Private open space is only for those particular private property users. You know, a balcony, a community garden with only dedicated to the residents of that development. So with that,
What were those numbers again, real quick, for public space, private space? Did you give numbers?
3 acres
3 acres?
per 1,000.
Well, and that's just public space only. That's not
public space.
including the private open space. The private open space and communal space. So keep in mind, most multifamily development, they don't have yards as like single family homes. That they have the private yards. So in multifamily development, they're going to have what's called communal space, and that's going to be like the swimming pool areas. Could be little sports area, the gym and so forth. There's a requirement there per unit, and then there's the private space, and those could be balconies or small little areas. And then there's the public space, and that's what I was referring to on the 3 acres per thousand. That's just public open space because, as we know, there is a deficiency in parks in Paramount, and so we're adding that many units. Park space will become important. But then we're also talking about the balance of what the applicant is looking for to building in terms of housing and all the public amenities. There's that cost associated with.
And I don't want to assume, being as I'm definitely not a planning person. When you say 3 acres per thousand, you mean per thousand units?
No, per thousand. It's per thousand persons.
1,000 persons.
Right. So if the city of Paramount had, and forgive me, I don't remember the number, but if there's 100,000 residents, you divide that by 1,000, multiplied by the number of acres, that number per acres. That's how many acres you would get for that community.
Thank you, Jose. So in our multiple family residential zone, just to compare, so back to Arthur, McClure, Richfield, those kind of streets, the code requires 250 square feet of common outdoor space per unit with 2 or more bedrooms. There's 2 categories. If it's 1 bedroom or less, 150 square feet per unit. So 250 and 100. So if you look at this, it's a little less overall, a little less than what we require in our multiple family residential. That's what's in the draft, and the modern development is asking to get that down to 50 square feet per unit.
Can you explain the recommendation on that?
John,
Okay,
do we
for
have, good afternoon, Mayor and members of the City Council. As you heard, John will maybe be back if his meeting ends sooner. But yeah, John, can you clarify, if maybe I missed it, I apologize. Did we have an actual number per square footage that we can compare in relation for our staff recommendation to what was requested or in the admin draft?
We don't. It's actually just a slight reduction, trying to get it down a little bit. So you want to cut it down the middle to 80 to 150, something like that.
So
The lowest reduction, sorry, John, the lowest reduction amount per square footage would be 80?
Right, and that kind of varies by zone. So the zone that requires 100, reduce that down to 80.
So the range could possibly be 80 to 150
100.
square feet
Exactly.
instead of 100 to 200.
That's staff recommendation.
Is that clear for council?
you got to say the whole thing over for me again.
Okay, in the staff, in the recommendation column that doesn't have a number for the measurement, it would be 80 to 150 square feet. That would be the range request being recommended, and the original draft has 100 to 200 per square feet.
Okay, this says, Madam Mayor, this says per unit instead of before we were talking about per person. So that's correct, right? In this situation, we
It's by unit.
consider per unit, not
Per home.
It's all
yes.
per unit. The per person is the standard that was used to generate the number for square foot per unit.
In public space, I thought it was per person.
They used a standard of 2 persons per 2 acres of park per 1,000, 2 acres of open space per 1,000
3
persons.
acres per thousand.
3 acres,
Yeah.
excuse me, to generate the number of open space square feet per unit, so that it averaged out to about that standard.
Okay, I need a whole lesson on that, so I'm gonna skip it.
Yeah, that's kind of the back end. Bottom line is, the modern development folks, they make a good point that these developments will have more units than we're used to, probably, by and large. And when you have more, you're gonna come up with maybe too much. When I say too much, but it might be infeasible once you add up all the required common space at this rate of 100 square feet per unit.
Okay, so my question had to do with when it says 50 per, so they could take that 50 per and pull, it's not actually per unit. They combine it all together and create one private space.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Okay, that's what I wanted to be clear on. And I understand your analogy about, the number of, units to open space because of the density. Okay. And so the staff's recommendation is 80 to 150.
80 to 150, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
okay
it's
with
fine.
that. Private space.
Resident common open and
And for, so I hear okay on that one, 80 to 150 square feet. And then for the private open space, again, per unit, existing plan shows a 40 square foot per unit. The request is for 50, and our recommendation is a range of 40 to 50.
To allow that
Seems to satisfy both. Thank you.
that too, Madam Mayor.
So that completes our decision making here. I guess the only pending one would be the rail issue for ground floor residential, which we can defer. And just, we saw this last time, just showing what the density looks like in existing developments. Alhambra Place, 61 units per acre.
What's a setback on that? Just curious.
The setback.
Sorry, John, you probably
It's
don't.
about 5 or 5 to 10, might even be 10. It's just the perspective. On this side here, that could be 10. Looks Americana. This is the 100 units per acre. This is pretty dense. And then more locally, Bellflower showed this last time. This is 80 units per acre by their station.
And I would think that Edgeway is 0 because it's straight up to the
That's definitely 0 lot line. Yeah, right up to the sidewalk. And then I have 3 here in town. The Enclave showed this last time, 60 units per acre. That's 4 stories, 4.72 acres. Somerset Boulevard, so another 60 unit per acre development. And the 60 unit per acre twin tower apartments. I'm not sure how much time we have, but if we would like to get into the transfer of development rights, that's the concept of allowing one part of the plan area to not be developed to its fullest potential and to take that and shift it to another part of the plan. That's, if we have time to talk about that, or if you'd like to defer this discussion to a future meeting.
And thank you, John. Mayor, Council, I would like to add, one of our recommendations is going to be, we started off with the initial discussion about the different zones being switched around and the different density requests that were made from Modern Development Company. So we wanted to pause further discussion on that, the dwelling and the density discussion, and have another meeting on that discussion alone on that item. Perhaps that would also be the time when we discuss this transfer of development rights, unless council wanted to discuss that at this time. But we did want to recommend another meeting on the density discussion
That's what
that
I
we
was
had
going
had
to say. One of
earlier.
the most important issues is the 2 plans and the density. So are we going to get to that? So you're saying you want another meeting?
We
for
would
that?
like to request, yes, another special meeting to discuss
If you
that.
think you can get it in within that time frame.
Yes,
Okay.
we'll coordinate with your calendars to get that on the calendar as soon as possible. And with the urgency with the grant and the completion of the plan by the end of the year.
Yeah. Madam Mayor, I'm not opposed to that.
I feel the same.
With the recommendation.
Recommend another meeting for the density.
The TDR, right? We're gonna do TDR.
Yeah, yeah, if you wanted to hear maybe John's presentation now, and maybe we can decide if there's a lot more discussion and details, maybe that go tied into the dwelling and the different changes with the zoning, that we could also wrap this up into the next meeting to follow.
I have a commitment, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I can't stay. So, yeah.
Madam Vice
So I'm hearing
I feel the same way. I think it's okay to roll it into the next one.
Mhm.
I think, we're down to those 2 items. I think we can make it happen.
I would appreciate that, yeah, but let's
this.
move on to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. This was the last of John, the transfer development rights and the timeline.
Yes, just the next steps, and that's really it.
John, can you go back to the next steps? We can take a look at that really quick. I just want to see timelines here. City Plan Public Draft Review, March or April, public drafts. Eco-friendly. Oh, the eco-friendly fair. Thank you for the reminder. Public draft period, public hearing, planning commission, and then final hearings and plan adoption, okay? December.
This is just steps, right? These aren't proposed dates for a meeting or anything, right? You're just outlining steps.
Just outlining steps, right?
Because you're going to have to poll us on meetings, right? Yes. I didn't bring my calendar. My purpose was this.
So if John, if you have nothing further, then
That's it. Did we want the option of rolling this into a regular council meeting, or do we still want to have a standalone meeting?
I would prefer standalone, Madam Mayor. The council's too hard for us to go through this.
Makes for too long
Yeah.
of a.
thank you. Yeah, we will coordinate with your calendars. Thank you very much.